Okay, shalom, shalom. Today is the Shabbat. I know I've become like a pants fashion icon, I guess. People always ask me if I want pants in my videos, and it's so funny. So I'm going to start off this video by letting you guys know that today I have on a onesie on because I record from my house. So when you guys see me in here, in whatever you would consider appropriate or inappropriate, it's because I am in the comforts of my own home. And so I guess I'll be more considerate from now on, because I have people going, "Did you have on pants?" And I'm like, you know what? I did, but I'm in the back room of the house. So yeah, maybe I should let that be known. So I got my nice little tasseled shawl thing that I wear. And so I'll just put it over my lap so that as this goes out, people won't ask me whether or not I'm on pants. But I'm going to tell you ahead of time, I'm in a onesie. It's a full body tank top onesie, just in case anybody's wondering. Okay, preliminaries out of the way. Second thing actually is another preliminary. I have been giving you guys emails, and today I was setting up a new system so it would make it easier for me to get the emails out of my regular email, where I get other emails for other things like work-related email and whatnot, and get them all to one place. Like I have the Her Royal Roots email, but I also have like all of the programs that I run and different stuff set to go to that email. So I'll have an email, I'll be categorizing those, and I'll be getting into those and answering them next week. So be patient with me. And then the third thing is I'll be traveling 2 times in the next 2 months. And so I wanted to kind of put out a filler. If anybody's interested, email me. But I'll be in the Atlanta region, in Atlanta, the city, and then a little bit outside of Atlanta for the rest of my trip for about 4 days. And I was thinking about getting together with women who are in the area and kind of meeting, laying eyes on one another, being able to meet in person. So if anybody's interested in that and they live in that greater Georgia, Atlanta area and it's close enough, email me. So the email is huldadaweed@herroyalroots.com. Okay, those 2 things out of the way. Now to the fun stuff. So today we're going to look at another conceptual thing. So the last video was why were you created? So this one's going to get a little more specific, and we're going to deal with the idea of the covenant, but the woman's covenant. I think Bree, she's in here, you can't see her, but Bree gave me that one. I had something that was probably a little more shocking. So we're going to do with the woman's covenant, because we know that the male has a physical covenant on his body, and it's seen through circumcision for the Hebrew Israelite. And so what is the woman's covenant? Does she have a place in the covenant? Is she covenanted with Yah and, between her and Yah? Or is it just between her and her husband? Is her only covenant through, actually being married to a covenanted person? Or is there a created covenant within her that actually completes the cycle of the physical covenant on the male? And so we're going to start with a verse, of course. So we're going to start with Genesis chapter 15, verse 4. And it's dealing with the idea of the Abrahamic covenant. And the verse says, "And behold, the word of Yah came unto him, saying, This shall not be thine heir, but he that shall come forth out of thine own bowels shall be thine heir." So just to give you a little background, you should go back and read this whole thing, especially if you believe that you are covenanted with Yah through the seed of Abraham. He's talking about Abraham not having a physical heir. And Abraham says, okay, there's one born in my house. He's a servant. I guess he'll be my heir. And he's like, no, that's not going to be your heir. The one who's going to be your heir shall come out of thine own bowels. And so there's a word here for bowels, and we'll actually go and look it up. And let's see. So if you see pig human hybrid, then you should check out Maury's video, because I'm totally using his phone to run the screen. So we're going to go Genesis 4. And let's click on it, because we need these Hebrew words. There's actually 3 Hebrew words that are used here, and I'll give you actually where the covenant takes place based upon this particular verse. So it says the word for bowels. So come forth out of thine own body, or out of thine own bowels, right? And it's this word right here. And it's going to be 4, 5, 7, 8 in the Greek. The Hebrew, I'm sorry. And the word literally means, if I can click it, there we go. It's this word, and it's mem, ayin, and it's actually hey. It gives you a yod, but it's me'ah, right? And it literally means the internal organs, the inward part, or the belly. Now, the reason why it gives you belly is because the belly region is the root or the place of the seat of your desires, which is very interesting. So let me give you this Hebrew word. The Hebrew word is spelled like this. So it's a mem, a ayin, and a hey. And actually I'm going to write it again because I wrote bigger than I probably should. It's a mem, an ayin, and a hey. Okay, so mem obviously has to do with water, motion. Ayin is to see, experience. And then hey is lo, behold, and the. And literally, in English, it translates as the unknown knowing. And it also means the gut, the lower region, or the seat of consciousness. It's pretty much where instinct resides, or the seat of the emotions. So the emotions in the Hebrew sense, which is funny, once I tell you, you're going to run all these connections together. The emotions took place in the internal organs of the lower torso. And so in quote-unquote black culture, which I'm just going to refer to as Hebrew culture, when you get butterflies or what we call bubble guts, when you feel like it, and it's normally caused by anxiety of a situation or something that's happening, it's because that is where the seat of emotion happens. You don't feel it in your mind. If you feel something, anxiety, or you feel overwhelmed in a sense, it's normally like, oh, I feel like I'm going to throw up, or oh, my stomach is acting up, or oh, my stomach is fluttering. Why? The seat of the emotion is in your lower torso or your lower region, as was the same thought for the ancients, okay? So having a child then, because obviously in this sense we're dealing with the womb. I'll give you that to you now. So all three words we're going to deal with are with the bowels or with the womb. And we're dealing with this idea of the woman having a covenant with Yah, right? In conjunction with the male covenant with Yah. And those two things work together to actualize or materialize a more broader and more whole sense of the covenant, instead of only seeing one portion and not really understanding where the woman's side of the covenant comes into play. So having a child, because that's what it's talking about, it says you're going to have an heir. So that means a extension or the next generation, right? Is much more than a sexual exchange. While it is sexual, it is the sexual act, it's much more than that. The creation that takes place happens before sexual contact is ever initiated. The thought of a child is before the womb. And Yah gives us this when he talks to Jeremiah, and he says, before you were formed in your mother's womb, I knew thee. And obviously he tells him, and I called you to be a prophet, right? So this idea of being known by Yah before there's actually a connection between your parents is very interesting. So this word ma'ah, right, or me'ah, has to do with this idea of the subconscious. So it's that which has been, it's the subconscious, I guess I should define that. The subconscious is that thing that drives your actions in the conscious, but you don't really know why, I guess. You know why, but you don't really. It's that thing where it's happening back here, and it's like a behind thought, but it's driving the things that you do in your everyday conscious life. Okay, so it could be, let's say, a subconscious fear. Like a person could have a aversion to something, and they don't really remember what it was until you actually sit down and think and go, oh, you know, that one time I went out to eat and I did eat something, and that's probably why I don't like this. But until you actually sit down and like bring it into your fore mind or into your conscious mind, it's behind there driving what you do and how you act. So Yah is saying, I placed you as a subconscious, right? I knew you when you were an unknown knowing, is kind of how it reads. And he's saying it's that thing that is happening, but it hasn't yet been actualized. So I knew you before the actual act and forming of you in your mother's womb was happening. So what he's really saying is, I knew you when you were in the bowels of your father, when you were just a desire. Okay? All right, so a child then is the actually the planting of the father's subconscious, right, or his desire, or his unknown knowing, into the mother's womb. And the womb is where the desire of the male is materialized. So it's that which is unknown, like he doesn't know each and every one of his seed, right? But they are all contained in his bowels in the area of unknown knowing. Like, I don't know you all, but I know that you're all there, okay? And so the child is then placed into the womb, and then that's when it becomes materialized, when it joins there. The lower region of the body, obviously, is known as ma'ah, and it reacts to the desires of the heart, and we know heart is leb, so it's the mind of man. When a person only acts on their subconscious, obviously they're not exactly doing what, they're not thinking about what they're doing. It's a push or inner drive that's causing it to happen. Okay, so intent involves connecting. So we're going to deal with these three levels. So we have ma'ah. So the intent or the desire then has to go through a process where it's connected and then materialized. So all three levels of the womb are in order to create or actualize that which is unseen. So we have the me'ah, which is the desire or the unknown knowing. The next word is another word for womb that we see, and it's very interesting. The literal translation is a pistachio. And it has to do with the shape of the pistachio, meaning it bulges in the middle. So it's beten, and it's the middle division of the body, or the belly. So these are both now things, but now these are both bowels or bellies, but this next one has this idea of something actually being seen. So one is the desire, or the inward part of the male, which is an unknown knowing. But then you have this idea of a pistachio. So a mother knows when she's pregnant, now this is before sonograms and pregnancy tests, how she would know that the desire had been set into play or had begun to materialize was that her belly would bulge, right? Okay, so I have an idea that I might be pregnant, but as my belly starts to grow, then I have this thing of actually seeing evidence, right? It's the evidence of the unseen. I don't see the full materialized child, but the evidence is this belly is growing, right? So as this belly is growing, I know eventually there's something else. So what do we call that in our walk? It's hope, right? And it's faith. You know that something's securely fastened, right? Because it's in there. And then the hope is in this idea of it growing and then materializing into something later. Okay, so you have bet, which is a house, tet, which deals with this idea of surrounding, and final noon is the seed. So you literally have the house that surrounds the seed. That's what this idea of a belly is. So you have a desire. Then this house then surrounds and protects this desire, this seed, right? Okay, so the third word then is the word for, it's another word for womb, but it's also translated in the Bible or in scripture as the first that passed through the matrix, right? I always like that verse because it makes me think about the movie. And so this word is resh, het, final mem, and it's rahem, right? And this word means the tender and delicate place where life is allowed to flourish, and this is deeper than the belly. So this is not just that outer shell, like a pistachio where it bulges, but this is actually the literal womb or the depth of where a child is formed. And this word actually is also the word for compassion, which is very interesting because we live in this whole pro-choice age. We just had this giant march of women who went and mainly marched for the right to have freedom of choice of what they do with their bodies, which was the main thing, and to not to knock women and women who value their bodies, But the value of your body should not come at the expense of the unknown knowing. Just because you don't know and you can't deal with what's growing there doesn't mean that Yah, like he said to Jeremiah, didn't know or had not foreknown that which has now begun to grow before you even had it actualized in your womb. So the idea here is this word for compassion, because the womb is supposed to be the most compassionate place on the planet. The idea is that once it makes it to that place, no one should be able to touch it. Once it makes it there, once the child makes it to the womb, it should be safe. You know, we used to play games when we were kids, and we would go, you would call it base. And so you'd be running, and you're playing tag, and it's like, oh my gosh, I'm out here, and I can get got. But when you got to this certain place, you're like, base, I'm here, I'm safe, nobody can touch me. You guys are laughing, but it's so true, and you know it. A child, when it's racing from the bowels or the unknown knowing of the father into the womb, in the most in the most childlike sense, is racing against all the obstacles. And if you want to look it up, there's a lot of obstacles that happen for one seed to make it into an egg. And when the child makes it to that place, it's like that after all those millions and millions of sperm cells, that one sperm cell, once it makes the egg, goes base. I'm safe. And so what the mother is supposed to do, once that thing gets to the beten, or once it starts to begin to actualize, she's supposed to go, rahem. There should be compassion then. The fact that you made it to this point means that somehow as a human, just as a human, not even dealing with the idea of a mother, but as a human, I should honor that idea of base. At this point, you're safe. Now, what you do with your child after that, right, is between you and the father, in the sense that if you say, okay, in the situation of rape, because I've heard this as an argument, after that, if you say, I can't look at this child, I can't raise it, for whatever reason, then give the child to somebody who can raise a child. There are plenty of barren women in our community. There are plenty of women who want and desire children. Plenty of families that do. But the idea of base and compassion, right, has to be understood. Okay, so I wasn't even meaning to go that direction, but, you know, Yah says go, I'm going to go. Okay, the next thing, obviously, in the idea of joining in covenant with another person, is this idea that rahem also deals with the word loyalty. And it deals with, this is the proof of one's loyalty to the covenant. To give up your body to house the thoughts, intents, and desires, or the me'ah, of another is the greatest sacrifice. Physical sacrifice of self to actualize the heart's desire of another is beyond anything. There is a certain respect, and most men naturally have it when they have a natural affection toward women and a natural respect toward women. When a man watches his wife carry his child, there is a natural change in the way that he views her. Even though as a woman we see ourselves as all bent out of shape and everything's going different from what it was, a man, a true man, stands back and marvels at what actually takes place with the woman's body. And he thanks her for the sacrifice, because remember, the unknown knowing or the desire comes from him. And when she accepts that sacrifice from him and then matches it by rahem, or by loyally having compassion for something that's not hers in her own body. And to prove that it's not hers, most of the time, and some women have genetic defects, but most of the time, the reason why women go through such a hard time in the beginning with nausea and all these things is because there is a foreign being and a foreign body inside of me using up my resources, and my body has to adjust to that. This is not from me. My body recognizes things from me, but my body goes, wait, okay, this thing is turning into life. Okay, let's switch gears. Let's give everything then to sustain this life, even at the expense of mine. And as a woman, and in the proper context, really you're carrying another person's child. I know we share in the exchange, of course, but that seed has been planted by someone else. And you're sacrificing for the intents and desires, or the unknown knowing, right? Or the subconscious desire of someone else. Okay? That's why when you engage in sexual contact, you should be thinking about that. Am I willing to manifest and materialize into a literal person that which is inside of this person? You're really bringing to life, if the person is a demon and a devil, then you're going to materialize that person into life. I know a lot of women who have children by men and that end up like loathing their children because their children remind them so much of the father. Why? Because that child is the intent, the subconscious, and the desire, or that inward part, right? The seed of the unconsciousness of that other person, literally brought to life and pushed through your matrix and brought into this realm. It's so much deeper than just a sexual exchange. Okay, so as a woman then, you're being the protective barrier of the man's future and nurturing and bringing the will of another into this realm in this life. So knowing that Yah gives life, it should be handled a lot differently. And I'm going to show you that you can have desire, right? And loyalty, and sometimes they don't match, which is very interesting in what we see in this idea of barrenness. So in the story with Jacob and Rachel, Jacob is talking to Rachel, right? And he already has children with Leah. But everyone knows through the biblical account that Jacob loves Rachel, right? He loves Rachel. And Rachel comes to him and she's like kind of mad. She gets all lit. She's like mad, right? So she goes up to Jacob and she goes, why have you not given me a child? And as with the Western and non-Hebraic mind looking at that, you're like, how could she even ask that? Like, what would be her basis for asking that question? Well, everyone knew that Jacob loved Rachel, but you're having children with Leah. So she understood this idea of the desire of the man is actualized in the womb of the woman. So your desire must be toward her if you're putting your seed in her and it's actually being actualized, right? So Jacob, his feelings get a little hurt and he claps back. He's like, wait. He goes, am I Yah who is withheld from you? He's like, yeah, you know that I care about you, but Yah first deals in the unknown knowing. Yes, my desire is toward you, but Yah is the one who giveth and taketh away, right? So that she understood that there was desire, but the missing part was that Yah had not given her anything, or that Jacob hadn't given her anything. And Jacob says, no, it's not me. Yah opens and closes the womb. And so you need to deal with Yah and not with me, because I'm doing my part, right? So what she was trying to do is say, how am I supposed to participate in the covenant if your desire is not actualized in my womb, right? So for the man, right, it's this idea of Yah and circumcising. So Yah takes the flesh of the man, and it's a physical thing where man physically sees that really, and it's funny because we don't teach boys the same way we teach girls. We teach girls to guard their womb and to guard their lower region, right? Because it's supposed to be, to the person they're married to, which is 100% true. But we don't equally teach that to males, right? But Yah, in the covenant of circumcision, immediately does the same thing to a male in the physical sense, because they're physical. And he literally goes, that I have had you cut is a reminder that the seed belongs to me, right? And the way that the woman is only supposed to give herself to one man is a reminder that the womb belongs to a covenanted seed. It doesn't belong to anyone's seed. I'm sanctifying the wombs for the seed that is in covenant, right? Okay, so if the man's part is the actual physical circumcision, then the woman's part is the loyalty or the compassion for that covenanted seed, right? When Yah gives Abraham, he says, I'm going to make you a great nation. He doesn't just talk about him, but he also mentions Sarah. And he goes, I'm going to make you a father of nations, and I'm going to make her the mother of nations, which means that I'm going to covenant with your seed, so circumcise yourself as a physical representation of this covenant that I have with you, and I'm going to covenant with her womb, so nobody else goes into that womb but you. So when they get into Egypt, and Yah shuts all the wombs in Egypt, it is literally a reminder that that womb is set apart for this seed, right? Okay, so this idea of sowing diverse seed into soil, Yah mentions that also, is meaning you don't put strange seed into a set apart place, right? Okay, so the woman's womb, it has a part in the covenant. Males are circumcised, and the woman carries, and this is a key part, carrying does just not make you a mother. Nurturing is also a part. So the woman carries and then co-nurtures the seed. Okay, so there's a verse in scripture, and it says that the woman, right, to confirm this, shall be saved in childbearing. Childbearing. So 1 Timothy 2:15 says, notwithstanding, talking about the woman, she shall be saved in childbearing if they continue in faith and charity and holiness with sobriety. This idea of holiness, right, is this idea of being set apart. Charity and faith, the idea of securely fastened to the word. Charity, right, is this idea of loyalty or compassion, right, or grace, right? So she has to exercise all these things with being set apart and sober, being of good judgment. So she doesn't just carry these children, but she also has to rear them. So childbearing, if they continue in faith. So you can bear a child and then fail all in here. You have to do the whole thing. Okay, so now we see that women have a place in the covenant, and both sides have to be upheld. You have accountability partners. The male is accountability partner to the female in the relationship, and the female is accountability partner to the male. Can't be sowing diverse seed, and the womb can't be taking diverse seed every which way, not thinking that Yah is in control of where the seed is sown and which wombs are opened. Okay? I hope that helps, because that was a big deal for me going through this. Was like, wow. It really makes you think about your womb and what it means and how you should nurture and care for your body, because you're literally housing the intents of a person. Also, I always tell people this, it really, really makes you understand and think about the kind of person that you're allowing to manifest their spiritual self through you and bring it into this realm. You need to be very, very careful. Women have choice in whom they allow to actualize their womb. I'm not talking in the sense of rape. That might be a whole nother subject. But I'm talking about when a man and woman choose to go into covenant, it's a mutual agreement. It should always be a mutual agreement, right? And the desire that is actualized then has to be cared for by the woman. So don't get into covenant with somebody and then decide, oh, you know what, I don't really like this person, so now I'm going to mistreat the seed. It doesn't work like that. When you took that seed, you became loyal to that covenant. And now you're responsible under Yah to how you raise and treat those children. And that's especially true for women who have not yet embraced this walk and who have husbands in this walk, that the desire of the father is very important and must be taken into account when raising children. This new generation of raising children your way and the dad has no input, or vice versa, right? It is absolutely asinine, because Torah should be the foundation, and Torah always wins out. So if you have a husband who wants to raise the children in Torah and you have a wife that doesn't, you're going to corrupt the seed, right? So it has the idea, if you have an unbelieving husband, right? It says, but if you stay with him, then your children are sanctified. Why? Because you're then going to rear them. Even though his desire may not be toward the covenant, your womb has now entered into a covenant with him, but also with Yah. So then you can actually materialize righteous seed by raising them according to Torah. And for men who watch this channel who are having a hard time with women who are not raising their children according to Torah, it's your desire that has to come first, because it's based in Torah that those children be raised righteously. And that supersedes everything, because it has to do with this idea of preservation of life. Remember the idea of rahem, or compassion? Preservation of life and compassion for the seed overrides everything. Personal feelings, she's gonna be upset, he's gonna be upset. All that stuff is it's overridden by Yah's law. So just let's keep that in mind. The covenant is with both. And I hope that helps some women. And for the men who probably slide through here sometimes, I hope that helps you too. And shalom, shalom.